Are you a chef today, Steve? Is this what do you see? You have a little you're on mute. We can't hear you, but okay. You're on mute. And you have chef's hat.
I
Okay.
thought that was I thought that was a reflection from my window. Did somebody do that on purpose? Because I really didn't do that on purpose.
I don't know if you share that computer with anyone, but I have had times when like one of my kids use Zoom for something and then I get on it and it's very funny if you've got other people, other users.
Have you ever seen that one on Zoom? I think it's attorneys and it's a judge and he's got like looks like a cat and he's like, I am not a cat. I'm telling you. But somebody had that filter on, he couldn't get it off.
Couldn't get it off. It's funny.
Yeah.
All right, Rob, are you ready for us to get started?
Yes.
Okay, and everybody you can see my screen. Is that right? I've got the workshop up. Okay, everybody. So let's go ahead and jump into the next phase of this training. So if I can get this. Okay, we did the team report out. So now we're going to do the business model canvas review. We're going to kind of double click on a few of the things that Sean talked about, and most importantly, we're going to put you in breakout sessions and give you guys a chance to do some more peer discussion, and then we can talk about what you're finding. Just a few things about why we're using business model. It's really how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. And so this is a systematic way of looking at it. There are other ways of doing it, and this is just the one that that iCore has adopted. It's also one that I use quite a bit with the folks that I coach, outside of this program, and it's just, it's a very widely used tool. And then business modeling, so that the action of actually creating these business models and testing them and refining them, of course, it's the managerial equivalent of the scientific method. So you start with an hypothesis, which you then test in action and revise when necessary. So I do want to just be very clear about the advantages and disadvantages. I mean, this business model canvas, it's a useful tool. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. I mean, it identifies the major components required for kind of describing value creation and capture. It does force you to take a holistic view of your venture. I think many of us often, come at this from a very specific lens that is our comfort zone. So in my case, it's the technical lens. But this really forces you to look beyond that. The other thing is that it's a great coordinating device for internal and external stakeholders. And so as you start to build teams around this business, being able to look at this tool together and all say, yes, this is, I agree with this. This is what we're focused on. Or I have new information that I want to add to this or revise this tool. It is a living document that can also serve as a great coordinating device. Two things it doesn't do. So one, it doesn't really give you any strong guidelines about how to collect the data for each box. So we're trying to give you some guidelines here. That's what the coaching's for. And the other thing it doesn't do is it doesn't tell you at all about the quality of the data or how good or bad your business model actually is. So it's only until you put it out into the marketplace and get feedback that you'll know whether or not this document, it can be beautiful and we can feel like it's really complete and comprehensive, but the market decides whether or not your business model is going to work. There's a couple of pitfalls that we have seen as we've been working with folks. This is our third cohort, and many of us have been working with this for longer than that. But I just wanted to share these with you now. So as you're thinking about continuing to move forward. So one pitfall is kind of avoiding a box because you don't really know the answer or you don't feel comfortable kind of playing in that space. And so, for example, you may be thinking, I don't know anything about these like different marketing channels. I'm just going to leave that box till later, or not address that box. And that's really a mistake. that you use this document to help you understand some capabilities that you might need to build either in yourself or in, in your team, or some expertise you might need to, hire, or, to help you with certain things. But don't avoid doing it, working in any of the boxes just because you don't know the answer yet. The other one, and a really big one, and one where we've already been honing in on, is that every single customer segment has its own distinct value proposition. And I would even say that, at this stage of the game, you're probably better off even having a separate business model canvas sheet for the different customer segments that you're identifying. And that's because they will also have a different value proposition. They're likely to have different partners, different channels, different, all sorts of differences in how you would interface with them. And assuming that they're all basically going to be the same is really a mistake. That's an assumption that you need to absolutely test. And so I like the approach of actually having a different business model canvas sheet. That way I say, okay, I know I'm testing all of these different things. It informs my questions. I'm going to assume it's different for this different customer segment. And then later, over time, after much testing, you may find that there are some commonalities and some synergies, but don't start out by thinking that way. Start out by assuming that these are all very distinct ways that you're going to approach a different value proposition. Another thing, and this is particularly for the highly technical folks, we often over rely on performance, meaning the features and how they perform relative to the way we perceive the competition or the status quo for the value proposition. When in reality, it's value propositions are a bundle of benefits that can come both directly from the product, but also how they may buy the product, how they may interact with you, how they may get data, how they may get the analysis. It's a bundle of things that will ultimately have someone pay you for your thing versus either paying the competition or just not even using the service at all, just maintaining status quo. So I encourage you, as you're doing your interviewing, that you're not only looking for like the answer to the specific question about your product, but trying to understand, okay, how do they make decisions? How do they interface with what they have? What are other things that I could potentially bundle with my product or service that would make it just be a slam dunk, grand slam offer that I could put out into the marketplace? The other thing is underestimating the value of customer relationships. And I've actually already heard some of you really grasping this idea of, well, I'm actually going to start my interviewing in this industry because this is an industry I know really well and I already have a lot of relationships. That's a great thing to do, because goodwill and relationships can carry you quite far. And so don't underestimate the value of that, and don't pick a different market because you think it might be it might be interesting. If you've got relationships in an area that you think, could have the problem that you're trying to solve, absolutely mine your network for information and for potential early adopters and things like that. And then the last thing is, please don't just do this business model canvas because it's an assignment we gave you. This is very much a guiding and living tool that if you choose to, can really be a powerhouse strategic tool that you use in your business. I think the founders who I've seen who really take that, so there's kind of two pieces: the business model canvas and that whole strategic approach, that in a really well-formed financial model that embeds all of your costs and your assumptions and projections. Those two things together can really drive your business and help you make database decisions about moving forward. So just want to comment on those things. Okay, so let me just tell you how the workshop's going to work, and then we'll get started on it. So I'm going to give you just a very brief lecture on the different components. So we've already talked, we've got value proposition, cost structure, revenue models, and customers and key partners. So we'll see as many as we can get to. Very brief lecture. Then we're going to put you in breakout rooms and ask you to kind of talk through some specific guiding questions around each of these. Then when we reconvene, I'm going to ask each group. So there's, I think, going to be 3 groups. I'm going to ask each group to just do a brief report out. So just make sure that as you're talking, and I'll prompt you with a note once you get into your breakout rooms that somebody can talk. Okay, just make sure that you all sort of point to each other, and at least one person can comment on what you all talked about, what your learnings were, or if you still have questions about this particular any particular aspect of the business model canvas. Okay, now real quick, before we do that, before I do the first lecture, I do want to validate my breakout room. So first of all, are all the teams listed? And did I miss any? And I will tell you, so Team Altus, this is a completely optional thing, but something that I thought about, because I think you guys really represented here. I think there's several of you on this team. If you would you be willing to split up, and some of you go to one breakout room and some of you go to another breakout room to get to enrich the exchanges? If you are willing to do that, please kind of decide amongst yourselves who will go in room 1 and who will go into room 3. If you say, no, we want to stay together, totally fine. Just go to breakout room 1, okay?
Yeah, very happy to do that, Angelique.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
Rob, did I get everybody? I just went off of your agenda. Is there am I missing anybody, or is there anybody that didn't show up? Just want to make
No,
sure.
I think we had everyone show up today.
Okay.
Yeah, we should be good there.
Okay, great. So please make note of your breakout room number, teams. And I just got a little picture. If you want to take a screenshot of this, you can, but just make note of the breakout number that you'll be in when I form the rooms. Just go to that room, and then we'll be ready. Okay. Okay, so the first sort of business model canvas section is the value proposition. We've already been talking about it. Many of you have already sent me, a first draft and gotten some feedback. But the value proposition, it is the bundle. Again, it's a bundle of products and services that create value for a specific customer segment. And so many of you have highlighted, this is broadly applicable. And I have no doubt that that's not the case. What we want you to do is to really kind of make sure, one, that you can clarify, you can at least name those distinct segments, and then be very clear that you have a specific value proposition for a specific segment that you're interviewing. So let me just clarify this. If we're recommending that you do 20 interviews, and then I think for the nationals, they recommend that you do many more than that, we're really talking about for a specific value proposition for a specific segment, because you really need enough data in order to kind of guide what you want to do. So just be aware of that. Now, you may want to, many of you have several, and you can decide, and I think some of you, we've had some exchanges, and some of you said, okay, we're actually going to pick one to go through the rest of this exercise and really kind of dive deep. That's one strategy. The second is to say, okay, look, we're a big enough team. We're going to split, divide and conquer. However you do that is totally up to you. Just remember that you need to make sure that your interviews match the specific customer segment, match the specific value proposition that you're trying to test. Otherwise, you're just confounded all your variables and you really don't have guiding information. And then there's a couple different types of value propositions. So they can be quantitative, they can be about things like price, things like speed of service. They can be qualitative, like design and customer experience or user experience. And I think we heard, I think one of you talk about your initial feedback was the customer didn't like the experience of using your tool, and they were expecting to just talk into their phone and ask a question and get millions of answers. So, it's just it's a part of the value proposition and how you think about it. And examples of ways that you can add value: performance, price, allowing customization, allowing convenience, accessibility, or reducing risks. And so the guiding questions are, you know, what value do we deliver? Which of our customers' problems are we helping to solve? I apologize. My lawn person is like 20 feet that way. So if you hear this background noise, that's what's going on. And then what customer needs are we satisfying? So this is one area where we would love for you to really leave this program with a crisp value proposition for at least one segment, but also this understanding about how to do it. And so I think most, if not all of you, have filled out the form, and I've already have gotten around the feedback from me. And in general, the feedback is around two areas. One, it's to be very, very specific for your specific customer segments, as I've been harping on. And the second is really around features versus benefits. So many of you have kind of stopped at the features level. So we're reducing weight, we're making things faster, we're allowing people to collect pieces of information. That's a feature. And the benefit, in a way that I can sometimes help draw that out, is to say, okay, we're reducing the weight so that the customer can do what? What is that, having that feature allow them to achieve or avoid? And that kind of achieve or avoid sometimes can help pinpoint the problems a little bit better than kind of just stopping at the feature level. So I would just offer that out as something for you to think about. Okay, so any questions about value proposition that you want to raise before I put you in breakout rooms and ask you to kind of talk amongst yourselves about value proposition a little bit? I think I can see notifications if hands are raised. Okay. So it looks like we feel like we're pretty good on value proposition. So what we're going to do, I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to put you in breakout rooms. So we've got 3 breakout rooms. I'm going to let you choose. And then I'm going to post the question, so you should be able to see it in your Zoom room. But the question I want you to ask is, can your peers, the other folks in your group, can you all understand what is the target segment and what the benefit is? Okay, segment and benefit. That's sort of what we're hoping that you all can convey to each other. Okay, so I'm going to put you in there for 10 minutes. Okay, and then the other thing too is we'll come back and you can tell me 10 minutes is too long, Angelique, 10 minutes is not enough, Angelique, for the next breakout. Okay, so we'll start with 10 minutes and we'll go from there. Okay, so I just opened the rooms. You should know where you're going. So join your room. Rob, we didn't talk about it. You can join a room if you want, or stay.
Yeah, and I see Steve.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sweet. Are you going to join a room? You didn't catch, you are in,
No.
okay, no worries. Let me tell you what room you should be in. You are in, you're in room 1.
Yeah, you need to
Yes.
send me a link to join the breakout room, right?
No, you
You
should
don't
have, you
No.
should pop up on your screen, right? There, I've got a pop up on my screen that says, oh, so let me see if I can assign. Okay, let me assign you.
I
There
didn't
you
get
go.
it.
Okay, I signed you. I signed it to you.
I got it.
You got it? Okay, great. Steve, do you want me to put you in a room?
Now I'm going to
Okay.
three.
You're going to room 3. Okay. Can
Yeah,
you do it?
we had 3 Altus in room 1, so.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna move to 3. Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
See, and we have one other that is popped up.
Who's not in a room? Who is that? Mm,
I think that's part of, yeah, that was part of Team Nordic.
okay. I'll give
Yeah.
it a couple more minutes since that
Yeah,
is a little.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I may pop in at the 5-minute mark to see how they're going, make sure they're not stuck, but I'd like
Okay.
to give a bit of time. Yeah. I really like the way you structure things and move through things. Get the focus where it needs to be.
Thanks. I do it because it's easier for me. It's just,
Yeah.
just get to hang out.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
So most of your office hours you said will be tomorrow?
Yeah, I've got, I think, 3 people tomorrow, 1 person on Friday. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the ones I had, I met with Altus and talked with the Luminary offline, not really an office hour,
Okay.
and Jeremy. So yeah, and traded a few emails with Nagwan.
Okay.
So yeah, those 4 have been fairly engaged.
Good. Yeah, and you can either now or later, but you can give me feedback on the form. I mean, I felt like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I was giving everybody feedback while my daughter was getting her braces off. I mean, it's just so much easier to do things asynchronously. So that's why I try to push as much asynchronous as I can. And I think, I mean, people got it and responded to it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
No, I think the forums are really, really helpful. And yeah, there were some things I wanted to get pulled together this time, but I thought we would have a bit more support this round, but we fell behind a bit. But no, getting some of those forums together before the next cohort and getting a few video. We talked about giving them some video links so they could
Oh, yeah.
do some prep, review, and refresh. One thing I did talk to Jeremy. He bought the books that Sean showed in his.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so that's good. I've made a note to purchase those myself. I've got a couple of other books, but not those 2 specifically. So, yeah. So, how are you feeling about what you've heard so far from the overviews?
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, and I'm not sure if we're gonna, I don't know if they picked it or not, but I do think there's this idea about end users versus, I mean, I think a lot of them think they're B2C, think that they're trying to get like consumers, when in reality they're B2B. Like you've got to get a bunch of manufacturers to get on board with. So just sort of helping, but I think they're getting that. So just sort of helping people understand the difference about that.
Yeah, and I
Make sure
think
they're interviewing the right people.
Nagwan's a good example with the Food Connect interviewing students, but like we talked about in the opening, is students are likely not to pay for a service. Who sells your service and gets the revenue ad stream, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Just gonna give them another, see. Five minutes.
Yeah, refresh my memory. Who was in room 2? I got room 1, I think, but I didn't get 2 and 3.
Anirdu, the PCO X PMS, and then I think it's 2 people from Subhadeep Chakrabarty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're in room 2.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to pop in, you can. I did extend it to 1:55 just to,
Okay.
it took a few minutes for people to get in.
Yeah, I may pop into room 3.
Okay.
See how things are going there. Okay. Does it bounce them back out at the end of the time?
I will. I'll close the room.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. All right. See you in a bit.
Okay.
Angelique, we got a thing going, you and me.
Yeah. All right, I'm back. All right. I just closed the rooms, Rob. So you're on mute. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, Lucy, I never left. So I just stay here while everybody else goes into the breakout rooms. So
That makes it easy.
yeah. It's the whole reason I do breakouts. Rob was saying, I like the way you do these breakouts. I was like, that's because it's super easy for me. I just sit here, let you guys do all the work.
Yeah, give Angelique control of the mouse and the pointer.
Okay, how did that go? So let's see, let me just give everybody a chance to. So room 1. Who's talking for room 1 about value propositions?
We didn't quite get through. So,
Okay, okay.
so maybe Brian and team can sum up since they didn't quite get to chime in. Perhaps I'll nominate.
I think Ashley's team also got a pretty good idea of what that working value proposition looks like.
Mhm.
So I guess the two of them can also give that a shot too.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, so let me start. So Brian, you've been volunteered.
I'm told.
Good.
Volunteer here.
So it's which
That's all good.
don't forget, we're gonna do this 2 more times, so you can fix it
Yeah.
later. Go ahead. But
That works for us.
yeah, is it okay? Do you,
Yeah,
are you,
yeah,
yeah, go
that's
for it.
cool.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
You gonna say all that and put me on there? So, I mean, I caught bits of it. I mean, am I essentially summarizing the value proposition for the other people and the benefit they would derive? It's like,
I'm really just wanting to hear how that conversation went for you all, and did you feel like you actually walked out of there understanding each other's value propositions, or was there any point of confusion that you thought we should talk about as a group? That's kind of more what I'm not quizzing you on the other people's value propositions. It's a good question. I'm just curious how, how'd it go? And do you guys feel like you understood each other's value propositions, or yeah?
I mean, without getting the full idea, I get inklings of like for Ashley's group, you have like benefits on like the organization side, on the user side, how you're filling different requirements there and how you're kind of targeting both things there and having benefits on multiple fronts. And I saw that being a positive there.
Okay.
Yeah, what do you get from any of that?
Yeah, I think really the benefit is pretty much just, it's good to have like a solid couple of sentences that really drive home the point of what you're actually going to be delivering to your customers, whether that's, the end user or the person that's going to be directly implementing the system into whatever they have already infrastructured into their existing companies. So really just having some strong points to hit off of, I think were the main focuses of the talk so far.
Okay. Anything else that group 1 wants to talk about related to value proposition?
Yeah.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Angelique, we talked about how long should the value proposition be. Like for me to explain all the features that should be included in the app can be a little bit challenging if the length, it will be 1 sentence.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think that 1, so really focusing on the key benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the most important thing that people that that were to purchase this, what would be their most important thing that they would value out of it, I think is really important to be able to kind of say that concisely. And then of course people can always ask follow-up questions. Oh, how does that work? Tell me more about this. Tell me more about that. But I think in the value proposition, we're really wanting to have this clear and concise statement. As you start to get, more out there and kind of talking about it more, you really want people to be able to say, oh, that could be me. I want to learn, you're solving my pain point. Okay, tell me more about that. So that's what we're focusing on here. And of course, you can add more later, but being able really to have that bottom line up front, 1 to 2 sentences is what we're focused on now. Group 2, what you got?
All right, I'll start.
Yes.
So I think, for me, it was a pretty interesting exercise because only 10 minutes and I had not attended the last session. So, it was a little short introduction to GE's product, right? So I think that's what the purpose of the value proposition is, which is, grab the attention in the very first line, and almost like, I don't know if you would agree, but it's like an elevator pitch, right? It's like in words, in written form, you get the sense of what the value is of the product that you're trying to sell. So, I'll try to sum up what I learned in a brief minute of, Guy's discussion with Guy, and then he can tell us whether I got the point, which is a reflection of whether his value proposition is well written or not. So his product is essentially a decision support system for companies that help them decide, the cost benefit of long-term versus short-term decisions that will help them better retain their employees and get better productivity out of them. And he's doing that by analyzing, past history and data related to different metrics of, pertaining to this particular question. So is that a good summary?
It was a good summary. And I think we spend more time on mine this time because Subi didn't join last session. So
I wanted to know.
To show what we did. So I think we spend more time on that. So they actually got a pretty good idea of what I'm doing. I got a understanding of what they're doing because I talked with Anirudh last time. And actually we even talked about few contacts that might be of their interest to help with that. But I understand what are their main goal in like they're doing this even it's not for profit. They're doing this because they actually care about safety of people's safety, basically, right? So this training and these optimization models for the active shooting that they're looking for, it's purely because they care about people. So that was something that was aligned to what also I'm doing. They work a lot with data analysis as well and optimization, which is pretty connected as well. So it was a good conversation.
Okay, great. Yeah. So if I can maybe just, I think the way that you described Guy's technology or his value proposition, use some terms that I think are really important because they're more, I think, broader and a little bit more layperson's terms. You use the terms cost benefit analysis and short term versus long term, which I actually really think can be helpful because that wasn't what you put in your value proposition form that you sent to me. And so you might just consider, oh, okay, as I'm talking to people about this, I'm hearing their words for my technical explanation can be very important to grab those if you hear that many people are kind of summarizing it in that way. Like, don't hesitate to actually just take the words of your potential customers and spit them back out at them. They're like, oh yeah, that's what I need. So I just would comment on that. Great. The only other thing I'll say, and so I think we probably have more kind of social entrepreneur type folks in this cohort that we have in the past. And I think that's really exciting. And I just want to say, people are willing to pay a lot of money to fix societal problems. So do not assume that you're going to have to give things away for free or take government grants.
Right. No, you are absolutely right. But
Yeah.
I think, and that's kind of came out of, the interviews that we have done in the past, that is one of their main problems, which is that schools are always quite cash strapped. But at the same time, there are plenty of other places where, we can go for actually generating revenue, other events, stadiums, NFL. All of them have security concerns and they are not people we would be hesitant at all to, monetize.
Right.
But so, we have from the very beginning, our team has kind of had this dual approach where we can at least subsidize our product quite a bit for schools, just make it, so that they can, maintain
good.
it.
I'm glad to hear that. Good. Group 3, comments on value proposition, the value proposition discussion.
Yeah, I can chime in on that. So I originally thought that this was, re-say the value, the things that we discussed exactly, but if it's more of like a meta, what did we learn from it?
Whatever
I think
you'd like. Yeah, go ahead.
I think for each of us, I think we had a pretty good idea of what benefits we were providing and what customer segment is the most important to target. I wonder if we were to repeat it and say, let's target the next best and then the next best, if that would if that would be something that we haven't considered, because I know I've personally considered like, the top one, maybe two, but I haven't thought more on the other ones. As far as like, the benefits that we generally found, it was largely convenience and accessibility and performance. And I think I think those are good benefits to have.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But for us specifically, it seemed like, there's a bit of convergence in the kinds of products that we're building as far as what benefits they provide.
Okay. You mean for the different segments, the benefits are
Yeah,
convergent?
like for our particular segments, it was a lot of convenience, customization, accessibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that can be, I think that can be the case. And then I would just suggest, okay, let's make sure that we don't just assume that all the rest of the business model canvas is going to converge, because different channels, different da-da-da-da-da. So as long as you're being,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, because we really focus on those two questions: which customer segment and what benefit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was the assignment. So that's right.
Okay.
That was the assignment.
I missed the message, so I kind of had to rebuild it.
Oh, okay.
Memory.
Sorry about that. Anything else before we move? So before we move away from value propositions, any further questions from anybody that didn't speak, that you want to touch base on before we move off of value propositions? Okay, great. All right, so then the next thing, we'll just move on. Let me get my presentation going here again. Oops. So, share screen, that. And so the next thing on your list was cost structure. So cost structure is, it's really just sort of understanding the most important costs that you would incur to operate your business model. And so sometimes you might be you might be focused on cost driven, and other times you might be value driven. And so let me just be a little bit more specific about that. I'm sorry. So which key resources are the most expensive? Which key activities are the most expensive, are some things you might think about. And I'll just show you, so my own personal example. So I spent 20 some odd years in the aluminum industry, and it is a commodity business, which means that the only way you actually make money in the primary aluminum business is to make it for cheaper than what the price set by the London Metal Exchange is. And so we were always hyper focused on costs. And so we would break out the major costs to actually produce aluminum into these buckets. So the raw materials, the salaries, the power, the actual energy, and then miscellaneous. And then we would, we understood what those meant, and we would then start to really, okay, how can we reduce our power costs? How can we reduce our, our raw material costs, and have entire activities around, really driving down costs. So, but really understanding, okay, what is the cost to produce our product or service? What is the cost to deliver our product and service? What is the cost to market our product and service? All of those costs, and kind of really thinking through what those mean. And then having activities around, okay, do these costs make sense? Is there ways to change them? Is there a way to partner with others to reduce costs, things like that? So it's really just understanding, based on the way you're trying to deliver your value proposition and all the activities and resources that you need to do that, what does that look like? And then you can kind of put it into major buckets, and then you really have an understanding of what your cost structure is. So it's not really anything more than that. Do you have questions before we break out into rooms to kind of talk about cost structure?
I do, Angelique.
Yes, go ahead.
So, purpose of knowing our cost structure, obviously beyond knowing what we need, is it, how would you prioritize the purpose? So it's so that we can assess the type of revenue we need to drive. It's so that we can assess how to cut costs. Is it like, what are some of the outcomes, if you will, of, keeping an eye on that at all times?
Yeah, I think, so I think one thing is to understand that different business models can have completely different cost structures. So I know that you all are like, you're thinking B2B, and you're thinking about different, potentially different segments. They may have very different ways that they need the product delivered to them. And so really just understanding what those differences are, can help drive decisions about your business, about maybe where you want to go first, and where you might want to partner to defray costs, or things like that. So that, and then also, it helps you understand what your pricing may look like.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, if anybody that's going to want to talk with investors, they're gonna really want to make sure you understand that cost structure very well, and can articulate what they are. And oftentimes, as you start to potentially partner with investors, or even other strategic partners, they may have some synergies inside their own businesses that can completely change the way that looks, and so I think it's largely an awareness, and then helping you think through, okay, are there some actions that we would want to take to make this look different, to improve our bottom line.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions around cost structure? I think at this stage, where you all are, I think it's really, well, you all are at different stages, but I think for many of you, it's really just putting some focus on that, putting some focus on laying that out, map it out, actually map out your overall process, and understand maybe what your costs are now, and then thinking through, okay, what could they be as we scale this business? Because many of you are maybe still in the, it may just be a concept on paper, or it may just be, or it may be a laboratory scale type of activity, but really mapping it out so that you can then start to model what it'll look like as you continue to scale, can be very helpful. Okay, so do you all want to do a breakout on cost structure? Or do you want, I see some sort of like, maybe not so much. I don't know. I'm fine to skip it. I mean, it was on your list as, do you have what you need, or do you guys need to have some internal discussion about it? I don't want to. How about this? So I'm mostly seeing people like, nah, I'm good. I would say if you're not good, you can send me a private message, and I'm happy to answer further questions on cost structure for you. Okay. So then we'll just move on to the next topic. Let's see here. Let me get back to my presentation. Okay. You also wanted to talk about revenue streams. So let's talk about that some. This is an area where I definitely want you all to talk amongst yourselves. So, so revenue streams, it describes the cash you're going to generate from each customer segment. I mean, there's two really basic types: a one-time fee or recurring revenue stream. There's lots of different ways that you can get revenue: subscriptions, a usage fee. You can sell an actual asset to people. You can license intellectual property. or people can, use your community or, the access to people that you have and for advertising. And so the things that you really need to understand your revenue streams are, what are people actually willing to pay for? And it'd be helpful to understand, are they already getting something that maybe even partially fulfills their needs? And how do they normally pay for something like that, like what you're proposing? And then you can think about, okay, so you can think about your model. Okay, we're going to do a one-time setup fee and then a recurring revenue. We're going to do a subscription fee. So I actually have a subscription. I have a subscription-based model for my own business, as well as sort of one-time setup fees for a different part of my own model. And I'm in educational technology as well. So I have a platform people can pay subscriptions for, or if people want like a custom sort of short duration thing, then they can pay a one-time fee. And then how will you think about pricing? So let's see. Yeah. So any questions about what we mean by revenue streams, one time versus recurring, or a combination, and how you think about, okay, what are people actually paying for? Are they paying for a physical product? Are they paying for services? Are they paying for access to our intellectual property and know-how? Are they paying for us to actually, connect to their system and add to what they're already doing, something like that. So I do think it's important for you to think a little bit about how that can actually work in your business. So before I break you out, any questions about what we mean by revenue streams?
Is there kind of a I know that, for example, in my case, a software, I can do a benchmark analysis and check what softwares out there are doing, right? But is there an easier way to do this benchmark based on which kind of product or service we're developing, or literally just think about our competitors or people that are doing something similar, even though their goals are different than ours, and go from there?
Yeah, I do think benchmarking is a way to do it. One of the things that I think is really important to understand about benchmarking, though it's more like a caveat, is that sometimes it's hard to understand exactly what the bundle of services is. So if you're truly just paying, if you're truly selling access to a piece of software, hands off, kind of, that's basically it. That's worth something. If you're selling an innovative technology with, that's never been done before, and possibly services associated with that, or consulting or something like that, then your typical SaaS benchmarking software is not going to really give you the right information. So it's important to just sort of understand what you're actually benchmarking. And then the other thing that I think is really important, particularly early on, is if you're planning to do any kind of customization, which is often the case for sort of your early adopters. Oftentimes your early adopters, your first V1, V2, V3, maybe even, who knows, V10, are going to be these like custom solutions that, as you're testing out your technology and proving it out, and that's where really understanding the value you're delivering is really important, because you want to price based on, you talked about return on investment. You want to capture like a percentage of their actual returns to the extent that you can do that. So that's where the customer discovery, and as you kind of go through further rounds of customer discovery, really understanding, oh, these people can save like $20 million when they implement this. Okay, yeah, you really want to charge this as a $200 a year SaaS? I don't think so. I don't think so.
No, that's a good
yeah.
point. I was going to add on to that, Angelique. It's a
Yeah.
very good point. Is benchmarking may be a good way to start, but I would encourage you to look at your what differentiates your solution versus those competitors or those other players in the market. And if you're providing something that solves a customer's pain and, so much better and allows them to, as Angelique said, save a lot of money or really reduce their pain points, don't be afraid to go a bit premium above what your competition may be. Or
Yeah,
otherwise, if you see the pricing in the market is they're not gaining a lot of traction and you're hearing from your customers that, well, that would be great, but we can't afford it. Maybe there's a way to offer them a lower cost solution that fills their need too.
Yeah, I was going to say that's another underpinning reason for why we're really pushing this specificity. So many of you have said, we have broadly applicable products and services and technologies, which I'm sure is true. But when you can charge more for perfect product market fit on a very small niche, then sometimes you can charge for mass market, close, 80% fit or 75% fit in a mass market. So really understanding, testing where you are and really getting good fit is important to start out with. And then you can kind of broaden from there. Okay, so I want you all to talk to each other about your revenue streams and just think, how are you currently thinking about what it is you're going to sell and how people are going to give you money for the thing that you sell? Okay, so I'll give you 10 minutes. So 9 minutes, actually, I'll give you 9 minutes. Let me open up these breakout rooms. Oh, they're right here. I'll open all the rooms and we'll see you back at 2:30.
So in terms of like these teams, at the end of the 3
I'm sorry,
weeks.
Jackie, let me interrupt for just a minute. It looks like we have one, looks like Lucy wasn't popped into our room.
Okay. Lucy, are you going to head to a room? Oops. Hey, Lucy.
How do I do that?
Okay, you should have a pop-up that allows you to, what room were you in last time? Do you know?
I missed getting into a room last time.
Oh, okay. Let me assign you. I'm just gonna put you in room 3.
Great. Thanks.
There you go.
Bye.
Bye.
So in terms of like the teams, it seems like some of them are still kind of confusing the value proposition with the customer segment, because in room 1, it seems like rather than describing what the actual benefit they'd be providing to the customer, they're describing that the value proposition is to like the healthcare industry. So I feel like there's still a little bit of confusion amongst the teams on
I
that.
think that was Team Altus, because I think what they're struggling with is they see so many different customer segments and they're trying to find one value proposition that and it's anyway, Angelique, you've talked with them a bit more than I have, I think, on the value proposition.
Yeah, I mean, so that was what when they sent their feedback on the value proposition, we basically said, be more specific about who you're targeting. And then they said, well, we've actually got 6 different options. And so we said, okay, well, you've got to match. You've got to match.
Well, that's spreading yourself that thin is the fastest way to burn out your company if you form one.
Right. So we said, you've got to match them up and be very specific. They also have a really big team. So they've already set up to say, like, they've got a healthcare team and they've got somebody else who's focused on the community segment. And
so they said they already have like some of the things operational. So what is their goal joining the iCore program then, if they already have some sort of a business already going?
They're a bit of an outlier. So the reason they got in, because they're not your typical iCore. And I've explained to them already that they won't be eligible to move to nationals. The reason they were brought in, I received a call from Launch Tennessee that they've stood up a company and they're trying to make progress, but the folks at Launch Tennessee said they would benefit from some customer discovery and trying to understand the essence of iCore, but they're really not in it to make that next step to nationals. They know that this is just a training opportunity rather than an advancement opportunity.
I see. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. But also at the same
Yeah.
time, also lots of teams are still kind of like interviewing within like their immediate like people they probably see like day to day.
Yeah.
So they probably can get like some excuse me, sorry, some kind of biased answers for a lot of the things that you're trying to discover. So I think that's like one of the concerns I had seeing their updates today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
that was
think
the key
that's-
thing with Nordic Labs specifically, that I think 9 of their 11 interviews were with faculty members. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry I spoke over you, Angelique. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, I mean, they started last week and we did tell them, start locally, and, we showed them the concentric circles. And so, within the first couple of days, that's what they managed. But yeah, as long as they get the message that they need to continue to go more broadly, I think that'll be good.
I see. Yeah, and then next week I'll be able to make it in person. That will be at IM, right?
Yes.
For a closing session. Yeah, I'll be able to make it this week. Last week I had a DOE review, so I wasn't able to leave ORNL.
Yeah.
For that, but this week I should be fine. Well, next week I should be fine.
You
No,
work
we
at
don't-
ORNL, is that right?
Yeah.
Are you okay. What group are you in?
I'm in the soft matter group. I'm in chemical science division. I'm
Okay.
a polymer chemist by training.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I'll pop into one of the rooms and just, I guess, hear what they're talking about.
Yeah, and feel free to, if you want to give feedback like to the whole group, feel free.
Yeah,
Feel welcome
sounds
to do
good.
that. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll be back.
Rob, do you still want 15 minutes? Will this be our last breakout session then, or?
Well, yeah, I was actually going to send you a note. And I
Okay.
typed it, I hadn't sent it. I only need about 5 minutes.
Okay,
at
so maybe we
the
can
end.
do one more breakout.
Yeah, I just want to give them directions on
Yeah.
what to expect in the final. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see. Key part.
I do have a hard stop at 3, though. I have a
Yeah.
Mid-South meeting at 3 o'clock.
Okay. Let's talk about key partners. Okay, yeah, we'll just talk quickly about partners and then have them break out maybe shortly and then we can be done.
Okay, nice.
Or
Yeah,
maybe
I'm actually I'm walking Vineet and Pratesh, trying to help them with national. So there's a
Okay.
meeting set up with Vanderbilt. So we're
Oh,
going
good.
through the
Great.
process. Yeah. And I had a meeting with UT folks yesterday about it was around conflict of interest. And it's like, what do you mean? These faculty and student can go get $50,000 to support their own company. They can't do that. Yeah, it's a conflict. But Deb was on the phone, so she helped convey.
Okay, it would be good to understand the policy because I do get questions around that.
Yeah. We're getting there slowly, but
Okay.
yeah, we're making progress. Okay. So are you good with that? Just leaving, like I said, maybe 5 minutes?
Yeah, we'll talk about key partners and then and maybe we just talk about it. Maybe I don't break them out. We'll talk about key partners and then I'll leave you with the 5 minutes to
Yeah.
5-10
Okay.
minutes to. I also want to just leave open questions as well. So
Yeah, that's why I started thinking after I said I just need 5 minutes, but I think it would be good to leave some time just for open Q&A. Yeah.
okay. Before or after you do your 5 minutes?
Probably better, and then just save the last 5 minutes for me to
Okay.
get what to expect next
Okay.
week.
Okay, great.
Okay. And what time did you have them coming back?
2:30. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I'll close the rooms in a minute, in 1 minute.
Okay, nice. Wow, my inbox has exploded.
Just today or just
Yeah, just this after. Oh, I see what it is. I got involved in some SBIR, STTR discussions, and now I'm like a lot of people's best friend, apparently, all of a sudden.
yeah. Okay. Group 1, what did you all talk about related to revenue streams?
Okay, I volunteered someone else this time. I'll go. I'll take it. Here we go. Opportunities, really. I think it might be the biggest umbrella. So we had just exploring the different types of opportunities to create revenue streams beyond maybe just one type. So with Brian and his team, it's, they have a couple and maybe a third potential that they're looking at. So with Nagwan, maybe a couple, you know what I mean? And then maybe some, and even how you break it up, like annual versus monthly versus subscription versus one time. For us, we've got 3 major, which would be like government, business to consumer. But the one that's going to be the most beneficial to us from a profitability standpoint is B2B. And so we were just kind of exploring opportunities and lessons learned there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And are you a subscription model? Is that sort of where, no, okay.
Mm-hmm. Not yet. So not yet. We're a recurring revenue model in the sense that, especially with B2B, like professors would be the simplest one that utilize Justice U as an e-text for their students. So that might be like a recurring subscription, if you will, but it's really just like a recurring purchase.
Okay. Okay, great. Anything else in group 1 they want to talk about? Anything that you sort of hopefully expanded your thinking about potential revenue models a little bit? Group 2.
Gail, you are going this time?
I can. We basically discussed what we're trying to look, how we're planning to charge our service and product. Ours is pretty similar, to be honest. The way that we envision more recurring stream, revenue stream, charging basically by user, utilizing the software. And something that we brought up as well is the type of software that we're talking about. There are a few others in the market that they basically charge like X amount as a starter, like as an initial deposit, to, hey, I want to use your service. So boom, you pay this amount. And then they charge the yearly fee, monthly fee, or whatever it is per user. So those are strategies that we're discussing. And then Subi and Jackie were discussing something at the end, but they got cut because we ran out of time.
Okay. Okay. Group 3.
Yeah, if
Go
someone
ahead.
else wants to
I
take
was
it,
just
go
going
for
to
it.
say we wasted a couple minutes because we were looking at the value proposition of Tanner having 7 cats, and so we did waste a couple minutes there. But but I think we all looked at the kind of the subscription licensing type. We all felt like that just when you're selling something one off, that's a very daunting task. That if it's just a one-time sell and you've got to go get the next one. So we all somewhat like the subscription licensing model, and just felt like nowadays the licensing model, if you're going to get it out to the masses, is one of the ways or only ways of doing so.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns that came up from anybody who didn't speak yet, just about what we mean by revenue streams and how to kind of think through it? One of the things that you might, as you all are talking to your doing some of your customer discovery, sometimes it can be helpful to understand how what are easy ways for people to pay for things. So for example, in my industry, there's a difference between, there's a dollar figure where something can be OpEx and budgeting, and who has to approve that size of a budget is very different from OpEx. And it's just, it's just a number. And once it exceeds a certain number, a completely different approval process has to happen, and it's much slower, and it's much, so just kind of understanding how, how things get purchased, understanding the purchasing process. The other thing that I'll just mention, that has been really helpful for me is really being able to tie in seamlessly to certain purchasing kind of systems has made it easy for me to generate revenue. So just again, as you're doing some of this discovery, not only just focusing on, what's the problem that you have, but if you can start to gather some information just about how decisions get made, how things get purchased. Sometimes, if you have flexibility and haven't decided on some of these different models yet, you might want to think about, oh, well, actually, I'll be adoption of my technology or my solution could be much faster if we go this way or this other way. So just being aware of some of those choices that you still have, and actually using customer discovery to help guide those choices as well.
Sure.
Okay. So we don't have time for another breakout. We have time for you all had one other thing. I'm just going to kind of go over it. We'll just leave it open to general questions and comments, and then I'm going to hand it back over to Rob. So the last thing that was on your list was key partners. So I'm just going to quickly touch base on key partners. That open. We'll talk through what we mean by that, and then
Angelique, while that opens, may I make a quick comment?
Yes. Please.
So what you just said just brings up in my gut just the importance of that customer service, that relationship. But as you're continuing to develop or build out your products, you have those you have those folks that can feel like they're insiders. And they were the early adopters. And so now these are some of the benefits of that. I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that, really one of the things we talk about is this whole idea of like customer discovery and trying to get input and trying to get feedback. Like it never goes away, right? So right now we're doing it on the idea validation side, and also on, on the value proposition validation. Some of you are already, further along than that. And so you may be validating your channels, or you might be validating other pieces of the business model canvas, but absolutely kind of keeping your receptivity to feedback, and deciding strategically what you want to adjust in accordance or in response to that is, it's a never ending kind of, it should be, I think it should be embedded into your business practice. And so I think that's kind of what you're saying too, is just about the kind of really having this continuous feedback loop, and staying close to the customer and what they want, is really important. Okay, so the last thing is key partners. So this is really just about who are you going to work with, that's going to make your business model work the best. And so there's a couple different types of partners. So there can be strategic alliances, so people that you don't necessarily compete with. I think something maybe kind of like that is you see like maybe Starbucks that are embedded in Targets, right? So they have this is strategic alliance where feel like they can both benefit from being together. Co-opetition is where you're competitors, but you might actually be partnering in very specific ways. Joint ventures, obviously, to develop new business, and buyer-supplier partnerships to maybe ensure supply. So you might have strategic partnerships in that area. So I think it's important to continually be open to and in evaluating where partnerships make sense, and being very clear on what your respective motivations are, and making sure that it can be a win-win for everybody. And so motivations are often, optimization, economies of scale, reducing risk, or maybe to acquire resources or activities that you don't have on your own. And so you would just think about, who can you partner with? Who are you already maybe partnering with? What your motivations are, and what exactly are you getting from this partnership? Because as your business evolves, you may decide, okay, this partnership actually doesn't make sense anymore. And you kind of see that all the time out in, I'm trying to think of a recent one. I can't think of a recent one off the top of my head, but there, lots of, like car companies might partner with Spotify so that it automatically goes into your, or Apple CarPlay or whatever. And then they decide 5 years later, no, we're taking that out, or whatever, for whatever reasons, because that partnership no longer makes sense. And so this is just, again, being explicit about what those are, what you think you might want to go after, and how those will work for your business. So that was the other area that I'm trying to see, do I have anything else on this? I don't think I have anything else on this slide. No. Okay. We're not going to do a breakout session. So any questions about key partnerships that you want to talk about? Okay. So now this open Q&A. Any questions about what we've talked about so far? Rob's going to go over sort of next steps. But any remaining questions that you might have relative to what you're doing with your business model? Canvas.
Other than are you sending the deck you went over today?
Yes.
In its entirety? Yep. Okay, great.
Yep. You all will have access to the deck. Hopefully you thought of maybe some coaching questions that you might bring to us when you do your coaching sessions to get some clarity on things. So if no other questions for me, Rob, I guess I'll turn it over to you to talk about next steps.
Yeah, very good. So thank you, Angelique. I'll share screen here in just a moment. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, good midpoint discussion, and I really don't have much more to add except just to give a bit of guidance between now and next Wednesday. But of course, any questions or any feedback you have for us, please feel free to chime in. So next steps, let's talk about office hours. As I'd mentioned before, Jackie, thank you for joining the program and listening in today. I'll be sending out a link. I've got it on the screen here. So Jackie will be available to help support office hours as well between now and next week. Customer interviews. Most of you are off to a really good start. And if at all possible, making it to 20 interviews by next week would be wonderful. But just to let you know, if you are interested or one of those companies that are hoping to go on to National I-Core, we can talk a bit about that during the closing as well. But it will require 20 interviews. I'll make a note that if you're not able to get to 20 by next Wednesday, we do allow some grace period after the program is done to allow you to get a little bit of extra time to get those 20 interviews under your belt and documented to hit that requirement. So if you're struggling to get to 20, don't give up. Get as many as you can between now and Wednesday, and we'll hopefully continue to stay in touch and keep supporting your journey on entrepreneurship even after the program. So the previous 2 cohorts that we've led last year, we still stay in close contact with those individuals and help them along the way too. So this is just a good starting point. So a bit about the wrap-up closing session next Wednesday. We'll be back at the IM facility at Cherokee Farm Research Park here in Knoxville. Similar format will be in the room next door across the hall. It's a tiered seminar room. We may have a few more guests than we did last time listening in to your presentations. Again, same time frame. We'll kick off at 10 a.m., run until 2 p.m., and we will have a break for lunch. We'll be providing boxed lunches as we did last time. The key thing here is we want to make sure that you talk about what you have learned and what you're taking away from the I-Core program. And it's great feedback. We want to hear this of what is helpful, what you've learned, how it's helped you along the way. And at the same time, bring up some things where, if there are areas for us to improve or topics you would like to explore a little more deeply, that feedback will be helpful for us. So when you come next week, what I'd like to see is your team presentations. And if you could provide those over in advance, I'll send out a link where you can upload those, or feel free to email those to me as well. And that way we'll have them queued up and be ready for presentations. On your cover slide, 3 things that I'd like to be able to see there. If you could include your value proposition. Again, one of the key things with I-Core, talking with your customers, is to build that value proposition out. Giving us a viewpoint of who your customers are, what your benefits are, and why somebody would purchase. Also, again, to what you've learned, where have you pivoted? Where have you maybe changed your thought process? What have you learned from your interviews that have sort of reframed the way you're thinking about your business, or what you'll continue to explore and learn after the program? And again, I think it'd be good to also show a quick summary of how many interviews you've conducted. Have you hit the mark of 20, or do you still have a little bit of work to do? And we'll talk a bit about, again, the key takeaways on the type of people you've talked to, the customer you've spoken with, and what you've learned through the process. And then for the final slide, so we didn't get into a lot of detail on that today, but I hope by next week, what you've heard today in the breakout sessions, now that you understand the 9 elements of the business model canvas, and as Angelique said, she'll be sharing out her presentation slides to help you build out some quick notes on each of those 9 areas to fully convey what your business is about. So give us a good overview of your business model canvas, some of the key findings, and how you plan to move forward with your business model. So again, I'll pause there. Those are the key things. I'll send out more detail later with the agenda and a bit more about the flow of the session next week. But basically, I think we've covered the primary topics that I wanted to cover today. But again, plenty of time left. If there's anything else that you have questions, or certain things about the business model canvas, or any questions that we can take offline for coaching hours, we'll be glad to do that. So I'll pause there for just a moment. Any other questions, feedback from the team before we head toward adjournment?
Rob, you mentioned something about national I-Core.
Yes.
So would you mind elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, and what I'll plan to do is when we kick off next week is quick introductions. So for this regional I-Core program, this is our basic 3-week quick introduction to I-Core. It gives you our regional program covering the main elements. This qualifies you for the National Science Foundation's National I-Core program. It's a similar curriculum. It's built from similar concepts around the business model canvas, but it's a 7-week intensive program. And during that, there's a required kickoff and a required closing session that you would attend. And during that 7 weeks, you would be completing at least 100 customer interviews. And the way the program is structured, the way it's set up is we're really driving to get 15 interviews per week. And you build upon those on what you learn week to week, and you go back and keep evaluating and refining your business model over that period of 7 weeks. The process for that, and again, I don't want to get too deep into it now, but the process is you fill out an application. Once you finish a regional, you are then given an opportunity to apply for the National I-Core. You submit your application, NSF will review that, and if you meet the qualifications, they will invite you to submit a proposal. And the national program, there are programs offered throughout the year, and you can select the timing when you can be available for that 7 weeks. You would also need to come with a team of at least 3 people. You would have to have a technical lead who can serve as a PI or have a PI of record within a university that can receive the funding, an entrepreneurial lead who would do the majority of the customer interviews and consolidate the information and the presentations during this 7-week program. And then an industry mentor, so someone outside of your team that can focus on where your business model is headed and give you some advice on the industry perspective. So hopefully somebody who's formed a business or operated in that space that can help you along your way.
Perfect.
So,
Thank you.
yeah. And beyond that, we'll also talk about some of the other programs. So you're not limited to just the National I-Corps. There are some requirements and stipulations on who qualifies, but we're surrounded by a lot of other programs. I talked about that a bit at the kickoff about Innovation Crossroads at Oak Ridge or the Spark Innovation Center and their accelerator and incubator programs. So during the program next week, we'll talk more about those. And hopefully that I-Corps is just a jumping off point for you to go after some of these other programs as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So next week, I'll look at the agenda, but for right now, based on the number of teams we have, if you can set your presentation and discussions to be roughly 5 minutes. We're a little bit more loose with the regional program, but I'll tell you this, a bit of insight if you are looking at going to I-Corps Nationals. A lot of what you'll hear when you hear about I-Corps is you run on I-Corps time. And if they tell you have 3 minutes for a presentation, at 3 minutes and 1 second, your microphone will be cut and you will be working within that time frame. We're a little bit more lenient here on the regional program, but for those interested in going into the national program, we'll be happy to talk a bit more about some of the structure and some of the things you would have to be sort of prepared for there. But for next week, if we can just have a target of operating within roughly a 5-minute presentation, as we've outlined here, that would be great. Okay.
Yeah, I would just,
yeah, go ahead.
no, Rob, I was just going to say, one of the things that we were, when we were discussing in between while the teams were on the breakout sessions is that, you all have done a really good job of mining your local network, which was where we suggested you start in terms of your interviews. And so, over the next week, if you're able to kind of branch out a little bit and start doing some customer discovery outside of your local network, I think that would be a great thing to start working towards. And I think that will likely create some ahas for you that maybe some lessons learned. So you can focus on that over the coming weeks. I mean, obviously, next week we have the finals a bit. We hope that you will continue to follow this, but that's really the next step is to go do your 2nd and 3rd degree networks.
I have a question, Angelique.
Yeah.
About the customer journey. So before this program, I already collected data from students from all over campus related to the app and eating behaviors and their perception about how technology can help regulate what they eat or like modify the type of food they eat. So can I use all the data for this program, or should I start interviewing different bunch of students?
Yeah, that's a good question, Rob. I think that's more of a question for you, like what counts?
Yeah. So typically what we would advise there is you don't want to ignore all the data you've collected. So I'll speak at it in 2 veins, one around our regional program and then one around the national program. So within the regional, what I would recommend there is using the data you've collected as your baseline, but then go back and try to do some validation during this regional program. So maybe reaching out to a sampling of some of those respondents and see if anything has changed or if you've changed anything about your model, sort of refreshing it around where you currently are now versus where you were before. The other thing too is within I-Corps, they don't encourage surveys. We talked about that a bit last week about surveys are good as sort of getting that baseline assumption, but surveys don't, they're not a good substitute for real discussions with real people, getting either face-to-face or Zoom or phone calls. So for the 20, again, if you can't get there by next week, we understand it's a short program. But I would say use that data as sort of your baseline, but then continue to do your interviews. I'll say this for National I-Corps. The clock starts on day 0, or what they call day 0, your introduction, and it continues through the 7 weeks. And they're adamant that you do 100 interviews during that time frame. And it's really important to get those pre-scheduled ahead of time. Again, we have a little bit more leniency on the regional program, but as you go forward, just understand that the expectation there would be doing 5 interviews during the first week and 15 each week thereafter over the 7-week period. So hopefully that answers the question. It's
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
yeah. Okay. Anything else from the team's participants? No? Any feedback from the instructor pool? Angelique, Jackie, anything you want to add before next week?
No, just
No?
want to thank everybody for participating. I think we had like
Yeah.
full engagement from the teams and participation. So thanks for that. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely. And again, we're here to help. Don't hesitate to reach out, and looking forward to seeing you next week.
And if you're struggling with getting interviews, reach out early. Don't wait until like 2 days before Wednesday because we can't help you as much by that point.
Yeah.
But best of luck, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Very good. Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Have a
Thank
great
you
day.
all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.